Now, good morning. I am listening to radio, and they're talking about the college football playoffs. In my mind, there's only 4 teams that right now that have a chance to get in that are 100% as long as they win, they're in. And that's Georgia, Ohio State, or Michigan, and TCU. They're going to be the only undefeated teams that gets through. Now, they have to win, but the only guarantee is going to be Michigan or Ohio State as of right now because they play each other. And outside of that, you have Georgia who has to win playing Georgia Tech. If they win, they're in, no problems. If they lose, honestly, I think the only one that should be worried about being dropped out is TCU. And honestly, why would you put 2 lost teams in over a 1 lost team? Now, you're going to have arguments about LSU or USC or Clemson or Alabama being better. But here's the problem. Each one of them lost to a team that was mostly unranked. Clemson got blown out by Notre Dame. Ohio State beat Notre Dame. Ohio State loses to Michigan. How would you put Clemson over Ohio State when Ohio State's the one that beat Notre Dame and Clemson lost to Notre Dame? Ohio State has 1 loss, Clemson has 2. Why would you put... And Ohio State's been more dominant than Clemson has. And they talked about how much strength of schedule Clemson's tougher. Then why did Ohio State play number 13 Penn State? And number 11 Penn State. Yeah, number 13 Penn State. And Notre Dame is now number 11. There's no... And if they lose to Michigan, they're losing to what will be the number 2 or possibly number 1 team, depending what Georgia does. Now, if Michigan loses to Ohio State, that gives them 1 loss, and they're losing to the number 2 team. And again, if Georgia loses, then Michigan loses to the number 1 team in Ohio State. Now, is Georgia going to lose to Georgia Tech? I don't see it. Can it happen? Absolutely. So I think Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan, all 3 should be guaranteed in. And TCU, as long as they win out, they're in. So I think as long as they take care of business, I think it's going to be those 4 teams in the playoffs. That only makes sense. USC has 2 losses. Clemson has 2 losses. Alabama has 2 losses. Tennessee has 2 losses, and I'm trying to think who else has a chance. But you're looking at the top 5 teams after the top 4, and you're talking about 2 lost teams. Now, why would you put a 2-loss team in there over a 1-loss losing to somebody good? The only one that might have a chance of being leapfrog would be Georgia, I think, in my opinion. And I don't know how you could even leapfrog them. Now, if you get to the college playoffs, or to the conference championships, and there's a big shakeup, then you're talking a totally different story. But if Georgia, even with 1 loss, whether this week or in the conference championship, especially in the conference champion, has a loss, there's no way they're not going to put them in. You're SEC. SEC is almost guaranteed a spot, regardless of how they do. They're pushing for LSU, they're pushing for USC, they're pushing for Alabama. All 3 of those are 2-loss teams. But realistically, you know as well as I do, if Georgia loses, they're still in the top 4. Realistically, if Ohio State and Michigan, obviously one of them loses, but the conference championship is won by that team, I don't see how you don't put them at 2 and 4 or 1 and 4, depending on Georgia winning or losing. And And TCU is the only question mark because I don't think they're as strong of a team as the other three. But if they remain undefeated, how do you not put them in? If they have one loss, how do you not put them in? I don't know if there's really a rightful answer to that because unless you're SEC, they drop you a lot when you lose. And there's no way that a one-loss Michigan or Ohio State team should be second fiddle to a two-loss LSU, USC, or Alabama game. And it's nothing against the programs. It's nothing against them. But you're talking about a one-loss team to one of the top three teams in the nation. And if they win after that, you know, whoever gets the conference championship, they win, they're in. So the only thing that would really discredit, let's say Michigan wins and Ohio State loses, and then Michigan gets to the Big Ten championship and gets blown out by a 4-3 team, now I think you could be talking about a totally different discussion. Do I think Ohio State or Michigan, whoever makes the Big Ten, is going to lose to the Western Conference? I don't think so. The best team is 4-3 in the conference. So you're talking about a team that has at least 3 losses. Michigan and Ohio State both are undefeated. Michigan and Ohio State have the top 2 defenses and offenses in the league. And then on top of that, Ohio State this year has not won a game with less than a 2-point digit or a double-digit win. Every single one of Ohio State's victories, and they're the only team this year to do it, is by double-digit wins. And to make it even more impressive, they have had injuries all over the field. Running back, their top receiver is out. Their top 2 running backs, and they were playing 5th string last week against Maryland. So you have players that are kind of back and forth on being a starter or being on the bench for the game because of injury. They have a lineman out. They have defensive players out. There's nobody in college football that has the amount of injuries that Ohio State has, and Ohio State is still getting double-digit wins. Even when they struggle in the first half, they're getting double-digit wins. There's nobody in the league that's doing that. And especially with second and third rounders, or second and third string. But I'm just pointing this out. I think realistically, if you're the college football playoffs, please share your opinion. Tell me if I'm wrong. But realistically, my opinion, and this is purely my opinion, is as long as they win out, and I know Michigan and Ohio State, with the exception of that game where one of those is going to lose, as long as they win out outside of that, as long as everybody wins out outside of that, I think your top 4 is set. And I think your top 4 is set. I don't think there's any question now where are they going to be rated when they go in. How do you put a 2-loss team over a 1-loss team that loses to the number 2 or number 3 team in the nation? If it's Ohio State, how do you, all of a sudden, once they beat Michigan, or if they lose to Michigan, how do you not put them in when they have just as many quality losses to a number 13, number 11, and a number 2 team in the nation? And Michigan has a little less argument than Ohio State. But they still only lost to Ohio State if Michigan loses. How do you argue anybody else over them when their only loss is to a number 2 team? Or even number 1, depending what Georgia does. That's my thoughts. I want your opinion. What do you guys think? I am really tired. Please like, share, subscribe. Give me your thoughts. Who do you think should be in the top 4 and why? Again, I think regardless of what happens, it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, or Michigan. TCU, as long as they win out, and Georgia wins out, and Ohio State, and whoever wins between Michigan and Ohio State win out. Now, there's things that can happen, but I think as long as they stay in inquiry, you should be good. Well, that's my thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. Give me your thoughts, and yeah, catch you later on the next one. Be blessed.